something that I need to write. You are tapping in the nighttime. You're tapping all day long. Maybe you just wanna hear a sweet song. Do you just want me to sing again? You are tapping on my heart. Tell me, what is the plan? Tell me how to heal my mind. Tell me how to walk this land. You are tapping in the nighttime. You're tapping all day long. Maybe I am the song of freedom. Am I the voice of soul? And women and children who love one another, men and children who sing for the rivers, men and children who sing for the mountains, men, women, and children who sing for the hungry, men, women, and children who sing for the dying, men, women, and children who care for all people. All people, sing for all people. Yeah, 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 You are tapping on my head. There's something that I'm doing right, but there's more that I need to know. More that I need to write. You're tapping in the nighttime, tapping all day long. Yeah, maybe you just wanna hear the sweet song. Maybe you just wanna hear the sweet song. Do you want me to live again? Yeah. Maybe you just wanna hear the sweet song. Hey, do you want me to heal? Heal again, yeah. Heal again, yeah. Maybe you just want to hear the sweet song. Do you want me to take my wings and fly? Fly again, kill again, love again. Maybe you just wanna hear a sweet song. Do you want me to forgive again? Let it go. All right, that was a beautiful song this morning by Brother Charles Holt. He sings often out in California, Los Angeles, California, at Agape Center, where the who's Michael Beckwith. Many of you are familiar with Michael Beckwith. He is the spiritual leader out at that church. Well, I'm so glad that you all have joined me this morning. I see that we have quite a number of people that have joined the Zoom room this morning. I'm going to say good morning to you all. Good morning, Al. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, Danielle. Good morning, Felicity. Good morning, Linda. Myrna. Good to see you. Cheryl Rogers. Good to see Tawanda Lee. And we want to say good morning, particularly Cheryl has been out of the country for almost 20 days, right at 20 days. So she's in West Africa this last few days. She's been in Senegal, and I hope you're having a wonderful time. We send love and light, safe passages, safe travels as you and your girlfriends move around there. Awesome. We pray that now my voice is being heard on the continent. Thank you for bringing them in this morning. I want to say good morning. I'm looking here. Everyone said that they can hear me quite well. Awesome. That's on the Zoom side of the house. On the YouTube side of the house, good morning to those who are on YouTube. If you're out there on YouTube, go ahead and say hello this morning to me. I look forward to that. Well, this morning, this is Serendipity Sunday. It takes place each and every Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and it's about 30 minutes. It's a time where I share a brief message that inspires you, that challenges you, and you can take it to work. What I mean by that, taking it to work, is that you work on it through the week. You can either go back and fact check some of the things that I have stated, and you can begin to take it into a personal space of what does this mean to me at this point in my life? How can I use this information? I'm not just a peddler of information. I'm really a peddler of transformation. So if you're just getting information, you're getting part of the equation. The equation is information plus application equals transformation. Information plus application equals transformation. You don't go straight to transformation just because you are aware of information. You have to take it in. You have to take it, bring it down to a personal level and put it to work. Well, this month, the month of September that we are all in, and so we move deeper into the time of the Virgo. We left those roaring lions, the Leos, we've left the time of the constellation of the Leo, and now we're in the constellation of Virgo. So happy birthday to all of the Virgos, those who are under the Virgo influence. Now, let me tell you something. Sometimes we get so focused on the aspect of the constellation that is showing up, but you are a whole person, a whole being. There's 12 constellations. There's 12 houses that they fall inside of, and I think there are 12 houses, and each of us have all of these signs inside of us or impact us. What I mean by that, though, like I'm born with a Capricorn rising. I'm born in the side of the constellation of Capricorn, but also that I had the Pisces moon in my chart. So what we have to understand, that's my moon. My moon is a Pisces moon. And so I want you to know that though you may be born on a particular day, all of the constellations impact you. Just as well, if you're born on a numerical date, all of the numbers impact you. And because we live in a society, we have a tendency in the Western world to segment things, to separate things. We lose the essence of the whole. I think it's Gestalt that says the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. When you break things down, you understand them, but you got to reassemble them. Even when we look at the story of Asar, it was about he had been dismembered and into, some say 14 pieces, some say 16 pieces. But one of the things that his wife did was that's Aset.
or known as Isis, she found all the pieces and she put them back together. And that is kind of the journey of our lives. We should all be on a Saurian journey, or on a journey of the Haru, the journey to find all the parts of the Father, put it all together and become the one. So this morning, as we move into this month of September, we end 2022. Now, we have two things happening at the same time. We have a spiritual and we have a natural. So we move to the spiritual year, one because of Christianity is a offshoot, or is a continuation of not only Catholicism, but it has its birthplace inside of the Abrahamic religion of Judaism. And so it's this time of the year, and the Abraham religion, Judaism, which comes out of the Kemetic system, is heavily influenced by the Kemetic system, but we are not aware of that. And one of the things we can find, if we follow the breadcrumbs back, we can better understand the whole Kemetic science. We can understand what we are expressing as either Christians or whatever we're expressing as. We need to always take it back to the beginning. Because if you could trace it back to the beginning, you can move away from an adulterated form, or you can see why it's expressed in the way that it is today. So I am a nowist, N-O-W, now. All that matters is now. As a nowist, that is looking at what is happening right here, right now. I try to stay in the present and not live in the past, not project into the future, because my future becomes my now. And my now impacts my future. So I'm a nowist. So I take all of the information that we have at our fingertips today, the technology that we have today, the research that has been done today, and pull it into right here, right now, and live my life inside of those things and practicing those things. So 2022, it started last September and it ended this September. That's the spiritual year. I know many of us are steeped inside of the civil year. We steeped inside of the Gregorian calendar. We say the new year starts January, okay, which is okay. That gives us a sense of a universal approach to the new year. But for the reality is, your civil year or your new year actually should start on your birthday. On your birthday, that's the time when you begin to do the new work. That's when things change. So you live inside of different paradigms at the same time, multi-universes. You have the spiritual universe, you have the personal universe of your personal numbers, you have the civil universe, or the universe that impacts all of us. And we have to learn to know that we live in many worlds. That's why the scripture says, be in the world, but not of the world. Know where you at, know what's impacting you, and understand the times and the seasons. And when you understand the times and the seasons, you'll always be you'll show up most appropriately. So this 2022 was the year of the six, and how we arrived at that was 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2 gave us 6. Now, it was a 6 working through the 2. So we had to understand what the numerical value of 2 was, and we understood what the value of 6. 6 is the number of man. And so 2022 was about the unified you, meaning moving from the dualistic nature of who you are. You know, you are spirit being and you are a physical being, duality. You are a spirit being and God is a spirit. So we worked on all year long unifying the individual. Here's how we do it. The scripture says, I must decrease, so Christ, or the Spirit of God in me, can increase. So as you decrease, you get to the place where you don't even matter, and you are absorbed into the greater Spirit of God. Then there's a oneness of being. So 2022 was about really staying in the conversation of a oneness of being, not God out there, God down there, or God in there, but as you are God. Okay, you are an aspect of God. We don't mean that you are the totality of God. The scripture that we focus on a lot last year says that Christ did not consider it robbery to consider it's himself equal with God. And equal does not mean the same, but it means made of the same essence. And so I hope that 2022 was a time for you to do the work to understand that you are made of God stuff. I hope that you had some glimpses, you bumped up against the greatness of who you are when you come into reality of whose you are. And so 2022 was all about the unified you, okay? Bringing it down to the one, bringing it down. It says, the Lord thy God is one. The law is one. Even though there's different manifestations of the law, there's 11 to 12 aspects or manifestations of the law. It all comes down to one. Everything spins off of that. And what do I mean by that? Even when we look in the Old Testament, we see that they called him Yahweh. And they didn't use the name because it was supposedly a holy name. So they would talk about the aspects. They would call him Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Teskenu, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Shalom. See, all of these things are aspects. And the same when we look at the Kemetic or the Nile Valley spiritual system, when they had Tefnu, when they had Shu, when they had Asar, Aset, when they had all the different aspects of the Neteru, the Neters. They weren't saying this is all the universe is, but these were aspects. And so we have to understand that source shows up in a myriad ways. The word even tells us, be careful, for you may be entertaining angels unaware. You never know who you're interacting with, but all of us are an aspect of God. Even the person that you would consider an enemy is an aspect of God. Now, they may not be vibrating at the fullness of God, but they are an aspect of God. So that's important that you know. So 2022 was all about that. Okay. So this has been a year with that vibrational frequency of 6. And so every year I do the same thing. And I've been doing this for years. As we move we cross the threshold of 2023. So as you cross the threshold, you're still under the influence of 2022 because that's what you've been steeped into. So you're going to find the deeper you get into 2023. So by January of 2023, you should have a jump on everyone else who are just waiting for the civil year to come in, who are walking according to sight, who are walking according to the manipulations of man. But if you're understanding that the spiritual year has started, so now you're beginning to move into the new lessons that this year offers all of us. So there's a corporate lesson, and then there's a lesson that each of us have. Now, what I do every year on my birthday, I do my readings. For those of you who don't know, I'm a spiritual scientist. And one of my crafts, or it's not so the world says it's witchcraft, like WITCH, the witches. But it's really called witch, WHICH. Which craft do you practice? And so many of individuals who were spiritual adepts or priests or called to operate in the realm of spirituality as it pertains to the leadership, they often had a craft. And so my craft, unbeknownst to me, that over the course of my life has evolved, numbers always pop out to me. I always see numbers and they stand out. I find myself adding numbers up, and I always done this as a kid. Would always get down to bringing the numbers down to their base numbers. I love math. I didn't like math. I like arithmetic. I loved adding things up. I love subtraction. I love multiplication. I love division. But when it got into those higher levels of math, it kind of lost me. Probably because my teachers didn't teach it right. I had the capacity for it because numbers interest me. So I'm saying that every year I look at my birth chart. I don't do astrology. I'm familiar with it. It's not my craft. I have an issue with most astrological readings because it really requires you to know the day and the time you were born. And many people don't really have access to the true time. But I like dealing with just straight spiritual numerology because we all know what day we were born on. May not know what time, but we know we were born on a date. So I take my new numbers and I look at my soul path. So my soul path, my never changes. My personal number is a one. I'm a one. It never changes. But inside of every year, the one has a different experience. And so even this year, we're in the year of 2023, which is 2 plus 0 plus 2 is 4 plus 3 is 7. So we have the number 7 is the spiritual or is the vibrational frequency that all of us are being impacted or will be impacted by today. Whether you know it or not, whether you jive with it or not, it is what it is. Just like even if you don't believe in electricity, electricity does what electricity does. You stick your finger in a socket with a metal object and you will see that electricity does what electricity does. You have to learn how to work in harmony with electricity. Just like the numerical system or the numbers, you have to learn to work with the numbers. So that's something. I have quite a few people who engage me when it comes to their birthday. Every year they will circle back and they'll get what you would call a reading. So sometimes you say, oh, you operate in witchcraft. Yes, witchcraft, not witchcraft, not the Puritan thing of a warlock or a female that is operating in a dark magic. No, I understand numerical values. I understand how they play out in individual lives. And I've seen the anecdotal data that corresponds to that. When I was operating as a therapist, I would always run people's numbers, even though I didn't pull the numbering system into the practice of the therapy, but it helped me understand that person. And it gave me some great outcomes. And I'm always outcome based. And I hope you're outcome based too. So you got to run the numbers. You know, you've heard it says that everybody is dealt a hand at life. And the hand is filled with numbers. The card system is filled with numbers. I operate inside the second craft that I have is the cards of destiny. It's sort of like a tarot card system, but it's tied to the playing cards. So I work with clients who call me and say, hey, can you do my reading? So I give, usually when I do a full reading, I will give the numerical system, and I also will pull in the cards of destiny. Now, that's interesting because many of us have said, when somebody say, hey, why don't you do this? Or you're going to do this? And you will say, it's not I don't see that in the cards for me. Okay. Because deep down inside, I thought I heard something. I know I'm here by myself. Deep down inside, we innately know that there's more to what's going on around us than what we see. So when you're born, you have a card, you have a spread that's given to you. This spread stays with you your entire life. But every birthday, you get another hand dealt to you. So if you had a rough spread that requires a lot of work, when you get that hand that's dealt this year, it eases some things up. See, the universe cares about you. So back to the numbers today. So we're in 2023. 2023 is, it has a vibrational frequency of 7. So this year in Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living, our whole focus will be a year of endings, a year of spiritual completions. And we're going to talk more about that. But in a nutshell, you're going to hear me throughout the next 52 weeks talk about endings and helping you to look at what is ending. The scripture tells us that there's a time for everything. There's a season for everything that we live inside of. So we have to understand that. We have to understand the seasons. We know seasons by the environment. We know seasons by the numerical number assigned to them or the month that is assigned to them. And so when we are in a certain seasons, we do certain things, we prepare for certain things. We same thing with numbers. If you understand the vibrational frequency that is surrounding you, impacting you, and you work with it, then you'll find that life will be a little more harmonious. And so we want to begin to look at that. So this morning, I'm not going to really go deep into 2023, but I'm going to kind of introduce you to what 2023 is all about. And as you stick with me throughout this year, that's going to be impact. Now, I will have a special in-depth teaching on 2023. I normally would do it on this coming Tuesday, but this Tuesday, which is the 6th of, I believe that's the 6th, yeah, the 6th of September, we kick off the Mastery of the Mind Master Course, the Mastery of the Mind Master Course. So if you got the email today, it'll be coming back out a little later. Check your emails. And if you haven't registered, it's not too late. To register for the course, to get your space in the course, it only is $12. Yeah, I say only. 12 is a governmental number, a spiritual number. So your commitment has to be $12. Now, if throughout the course of the 12 weeks that we're together, you see value, you can bless me in relationship to the value. See, I walk by faith and not by sight. I believe that I can deliver and then on the backside get compensation or receive value for what is given. I don't believe that anybody should be paying for something that they don't find value in. But we live in a society where people want you to pay everything up front. I was out eating the other night, and they took my card before I had even ordered my food. And I said, because I guess people run off. I was over at the Ballpark Village, and they take your card, and then you start like a tab or whatever, and they give your card back at the end of the night. So I guess they run it to make sure it has something on it. So I just want to encourage you all that as we move into 2023, know that there's something here. You can say this: 2023, there's something in it for me. Say that with me. Come on. Be present, participate. Oh, you're right. Okay. 2023, there's something in it for me. I like to rhyme because rhyming does a lot for you. That's another practice that we can take on when you're trying to reformulate, when you're trying to create things. Your intentions, your statements, your affirmations should be set to a rhyme, because when you set it to a rhyme, it gives it some reason. So this morning we're looking at 2023, the year or the time of endings. If you saw the image that I had, it was a train tracks. And if you look as you look at the train tracks from up close to the distance, you see as it moves into the distance, it becomes foggy. As it moves into the distance, you also saw that the train tracks crossed. Those are called switches. And so as we move from 2022, or the vibrational frequency, which is still upon us, it's overlapping. As we move into 2023, there's going to be some switches. There's going to be some changes. You may have been going this direction, but it may be over, and you find yourself gently moving in another direction. And so don't try to overcorrect it. Don't try to get back on the track that you were on. Know that naturally, spiritually, you're moving in another direction. Why? Because something is coming to an end. When something is end, it doesn't mean that it's over, but it means that at this point in your life, something new is trying to express to you. So when you look at those tracks, they cross. And as they cross, they move into the fog of the future. Reason why I call it the fog of the future, because we cannot see into the future. We can speculate in far as the natural essence. But we don't really have to know the future, because we understand this, that Source knows the plans that it has for us, and that it desires to get us to our expected end. Sometimes if you want to know the future too far in ahead or in advance, it's because you don't trust. It's like sometimes when I pick up Cheryl to go on a date. The first question is, where are we going? Just chill. Sometimes, can you just sit in the passenger seat? I'm not talking about Cheryl. I'm talking about you. Can you sometimes just choose to sit in the seat and allow source to take you to your next destiny? We're so busy creating, crafting, doing. And that's one of the things I hope 2022 has shown you, that you must decrease. Many are the plans of man, but the word says, but the end thereof is destruction. How many of you can say right now that you had your own plans, and at the time of making that plan, it seemed like it was the right plan? But here you are today, and you can say, wow, I missed that one, or it wasn't time. See, a delay is not a denial. You got to always be in sync, in harmony with, like music. Music is all about numbers, and we're talking about numbers. You know, we play music to a scale, and the scale has beats, and the scale has a numerical value assigned to it. And so we have to learn to be in harmony with the frequency that we're on, has a numerical value to it. The frequency of health is one frequency. The frequency of sickness and disease is one frequency. So we got to learn the scale of frequencies. And so if you hold the right frequency, you will be seeing more frequently the things you want to desire. Last week, or one day this week, during a morning prayer, someone was talking about fear, and it came to me that fear was the frequency, like FEAR. And it basically was saying that the frequency, what was that? When I said fear last week, let me see if I can go back to that right quick, because that was really powerful when we were talking about fear last week, when the fact that it just came to us during the time of our spiritual time together. So fear was, let me see here. I got it here on my computer here. Okay, failure to emote appropriate resonance. Fear, failure, failure to emote. Okay, to emote, to put off the signal. Okay, appropriate, the right signal, resonance. So fear is failure to emote the appropriate resonance, and that is the God resonance. When you operate with the God resonance for whatever you're trying to do, when you're on the same resonance, the same frequency with source, you are sure that you will be successful. Whenever you're not successful, it's most likely because you're not in alignment with the proper frequency. That's why we need to know, what is our soul path? What did you come here to do? What did you come here to experience? What was your soul agreements? And that's part of the reattaching, the remembering. Because when we come down through the fallopian tubes and we have dropped out of the birthing canal, we had dropped into a family of origin, then we have all these environmental influences. We have our daddy's influence, our mama's influence, our cousin's influence, our siblings' influence, the community influence. We have all of these influences, and we are absorbing them the first 7 years of our life. And then unless you come to the realization that, hey, I have all this stuff imposed on me, now I got to go through the quagmire and find out, what did I come here to remember, recall, remember. So the Asarian drama is about reattaching, getting back to, what did I leave source coming here to do? And once you get clear on who you are, your design, if you're designed as a hammer, you know you're called to nail things. If you are designed as a screwdriver, you know you're called to screw things. If you're whatever your design dictates, their design dictates what you are to do. And so you got to find out what your design. Now, I'm talking a lot about numbers in a roundabout way. Your numbers tell you what you're made of. When you go to the doctor, they check your numbers, because if your numbers are not right, they know something is out of whack, out of order. And they have ranges that they operate in. The same with you. Many of you never check your numbers. You don't know who you are. You don't know what your design is. You don't know the capacity, because you are that, whether or not you operate in it or not. You may have been designed to be a world-class singer, but you don't even sing because when you were little, something happened or you never had the opportunity. But if you knew that you was designed to be a singer, you would do the things that singers do. So we have to understand who we are, whose we are, what we've been called to express as in this lifetime. So when we look at 2023, it's 2 plus 2 plus 3 equals 7. So before I go into that, I want to lay a little foundation about numbers. Okay. So I'm into esoteric numerology or hidden numbers, the meaning behind the metaphysics behind the numbers. Now, numerology began when life began. The moment you were born, numbers start rolling through. The moment you come into the earth, the first thing you do, they look at the clock and they say, this is what time this child was born, or they know the date. When you meet people, the one first things you usually ask a person is, when. Now, as you get older, you don't ask people that because you don't want to realize that I'm probably talking to somebody just as old as me. But when we're in the prime of our lives, we're always asking people, hey, what month were you born in? Or what's your sign? Very people ask people, when last time somebody asked you what's your number besides asking you for your telephone number? Okay. No, I mean, what is your number? Like, what are your soul paths? What is the 4 significant numbers? Do you know all 4 of those numbers and how they relate to you? So when we talk about esoteric numerology, the history of numerology, they tie it back to Pythagoras. So now, we know that Pythagoras has given us what is known as the Pythagorean theorem, but Pythagoras himself in his own diaries have told them that he learned all of that he learned in the mystery schools of Egypt, the Kemetic system. And so he brought that back to Greece, and he began to teach those things, but he taught the numbers. A couple of things that I wanted to share. He taught that numbers have a significance apart from values denoted by the figures. Now, this is key. Numbers are different from figures, okay? Numbers are different from figures. He stated, numbers represent qualities, figures represent quantities. Know that numbers represent qualities, figures represent quantities. And many times we're just more concerned about quantity versus the quality. It's the quality that you need to be really concerned about when we're talking about the frequencies, the quality of the number, not the quantity. Numbers operate on a spiritual plane, while figures are for measuring things on the material plane. Figures are for measuring things on a material plane, while numbers operate on a spiritual plane. So when I say 2023, I'm talking about the spiritual plane and the spiritual frequency of 7. Now, understanding the digits, the numbers, the true numbering value system is 1 through 9, but there's a 0 there. 0 has no value, but it has all value. When you understand the Kemetic or the Nile Valley spiritual system, everything started with none, N-U-N, none and none, which is 0, or they also call it the great egg, but it's not an egg, it's a 0. And it's also known today as the quantum field, the field from which everything is. Anything that is to come forth already exists in the field, already exists in 0. 0 represents chaos. 0 represents a possibility. 0 represents unknown. So from the unknown comes the 9 numbers, 1 through 9. Now, you do have other numbers like 10, 12, which have significant value to them, 11, 22, 33, master numbers. And so when you understand that every number it has a base of 1 through 9. So I kind of wanted to kind of touch on that briefly this morning, and we'll circle back to 7. So let's start with, just so you all can operate, we operate from the same place this morning. So we look at the numbers. Remember, I told you that numbers represent qualities, Figures represents quantities. So we're looking at the qualities here of these particular numbers. What is the meaning of these numbers? And since many of you who are joining me are part of the spiritual system of Christianity at some level, some traditional, some more expanded, I usually operate a lot from that place because that's where I was born into, and that's where I have the most understanding. So when we talk about one is a number of union and oneness, okay? Like you look in Deuteronomy 6:4, it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. There's one law." John 10:30 tells us, "I and my Father are one." Okay, First Corinthians 8:4 tells us there is no other God but one. So we have to understand the oneness of God. God is one, Galatians chapter 3. So when we talk about one, the number one is about union and oneness. One is independent of all other numbers, and yet is contained in all other numbers. One is only divisible by itself. So one is important. One. Now, with the one, if you were your soul path of one, it tells you that you are a leader. Even though you may be born with the leadership number of one, yet if you don't do the transformative work, that one never really shows up. Just because you're born with the numbers, don't mean that is just what's going to show up in your life. You have to do the work of So I transform from the oneness in my life to be the leader. That's why I always ended up in situations where I've been the lead, I've been the supervisor, I've been at the head, I've been the only one. Like in where I work, I'm the only community employment coordinator for this whole vision that I'm in. And so, and usually when you're the only one, you work as a one. I'm very independent. I work well by myself, even though I know how to work with a team of people. I also know how to work by myself, and I quite really enjoy it. Ones enjoy being alone. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not a loner, but I enjoy being all one, alone, by myself. And it has nothing to do with the individuals who I'm surrounded by. I have a loving family, I have a loving community, but there comes a point in my day that I need to break away and be all one, alone. So when you talk about two is the number of companionship. Okay. When we talk about two, it talks about duality. It also talks about a witness. It talks about division. Okay. Although a man and woman are brought together as one in marriage, they still are two individuals. You know, we have this thing to become one. We become one in the essence of purpose, but we still have our individuality. Purpose by God to be companions to one another in separate and unique ways. Okay. And when you look at two in the Bible, you see he brought two of every kind of animal that entered into the ark, into that story. Two tablets contain the 10 commandments. Two testaments make up the Old and the New Testament. Two witnesses were required for the law to be valid. Two times Pharaoh was given a dream. Two parts in a day. Morning, evening, and morning was the day. So 2 loaves and 2 lambs were the wave offering of the Shabbat. So when we look at two in the scriptures, it shows up in many different ways to show us that two is about companionship. So if you're born under the number 2, there are certain things that has to do with a quest for companionship, a longing to have others around. It's not that you're insecure of yourself, but you're uniquely designed. Your characteristic is to bump up against or be in relationship to others. Now, 3 is I'm moving kind of fast because I respect the time that we have. 3 is the Trinity. You know, most time we talk about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In the Trinity, we talk about Asar, Arset, and Haru, the Mother, the Father, the Mother, and the Son. It's the divine family. 3 is a number of Trinity as perfectly seen as in the Holy Trinity. One God in 3 persons. So in the same way we talk about Asar, Arset, and Haru, that you are Asar, you are Aset, you are Haru, you are the Son, you are that's working with the Spirit that evolves to become the mature individual. So it's about maturing. When you talk about the Trinity, when you talk about the Trinity is our first example of family, the unit. Okay, so we have to know God set patterns of three in many of the rituals and instructions. When you read the Old Testament, there was three places men dwell: heaven, earth, and the underworld. Okay, there was three heavens. There's three time frames. We have past, present, and future. There's three measurements: length, width, and what? Height. We have three states of water: solid, gas, and liquid. We have three abilities of man: thought, word, and deed. So three is the divine trinity. It's the expression of the one and the two. It gives us three. Okay, so that's important. So when we talk about three is a powerful number. It has to do with the essence of the divine triune. So that's important. When we look at four, the number four has to do with creation or creative works of your create. So you're born under four, you probably have a creative mind. You're probably artistic. You're probably in one of those things. When we talk about four pertains to God's earthly, under the sun, creative works, not only in heavens, but on the earth. You know, there's four corners to the earth. There's four cardinal directions. That is north, south, east, and west. There's four phases to the moon. There are four elements. You have earth, water, and earth, fire, water, and air. Earth, wind, and fire, you know, that the three there. And you say, wow, earth, wind, and fire. Where was water? Okay. Water is the essence of all things. You have four, when you look in the Bible, there's four rivers, four of the paradises found in Genesis 2. The four guardians of the throne of God. There was four empires of Daniel. When you talk about the beasts, there's four acts of judgment. Those are sword, the famine, the evil beast, and the pestilence. Okay. So when we look at four, it also represents the creative and the destructive force. So when you look at four, the positive end is creation. The negative or the lower vibration of the four is destruction. So a person born under the four can be very creative. And also, if they're not handling it properly, they can be destructive. Many of us operate the four in our lives in a very destructive way. Why? Because we are creating from our own selfish desires versus creating the life that we desire to live in alignment with the numbers, in alignment with our cards, in alignment with our soul purpose, our soul path. So we bring destruction into our lives. So that four is something you got to be familiar with. Five, you know, many times people say five is a number of grace. And the reason why it has to do with the number of grace, because it has to do with humanness. Five has to do with humanness, weakness, man's limitations, dependence, man's insufficiency in yourself. It has to do with death. You have to say it describes man in its totality. Man has 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 senses. There's 5 books in the law. There's 5 kinds of animals that were sacrificed. When you look in the Old Testament, in the Levitical law, 5 husbands could not satisfy the one woman at the well. So 5 is a number also of change. 5 represents a number of movement, but we are creatures of habit and we don't like to change. And because we don't like to change, it usually means the death of ourselves. Change often means dying. Change often means not dying from the place of your dead, but it means that you're transitioning. So 5 is a number of the human weakness, the limitations in and of themselves. 6 last year was the number of 6. It was the number, we say 6 is the number of man, and we say 666 is the number of the beast. That is the imperfect man operates in, there's 4 aspects of man. Man, a divine spiritual being, has 4 aspects to him. Man is he's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. When you look at the number of 6 of man, that's just man at his best mentally, man at his best emotionally, man at his best physically. But man is lacking that 4th component, man at his best spiritually. Now, so the number of the beast is the 3 6s, but the number of divine man is 4 6s. You're walking in your divine mental self, emotional self, physical self, and spiritual self. So we talk about the number of man being 6, including the fallen nature of man. That is the man who has not really risen to the fullness of who he or she is. That is the number of man. 6 falls short of the number 7. God's number of completion and perfection, which we're moving to. And the man falls short of the perfection of God created him to be, if you're just operating in this physical domain. With 5 as a number of humanness and death, 6 represents man in his fallen nature. Okay, but you want to get to the completeness. You want to get to, we want to move away from that unholy trinity of 666 to the holy trinity of 6666. So that's important. So when we talk about six, we know that there was a 6th day God created man. We were born in man was created, or the idea of man was spoken to in Genesis chapter 1 and 20 and 1 and 27. Then we go to Genesis chapter 2, we see where man was formed. So 6 days were given to man to work. We were given 6 days. Now that's interesting because when we look at the Bible, our source document that's given to us inside of the Abrahamic type spiritual systems, they have only given us 7 days. On the 7th day, God rested. But the numerical system has 9 days. Interesting enough, the Nile Valley civilizations had 9 days to their work. They worked 9 days, and on the 0th to 10th day, they rested. It was complete. Everything was done. Everything was in there. So we have a spiritual system that's religious system that's steeped inside of 7 days versus the original spiritual system was steeped inside of 9 days, which is interesting because you can understand the totality of 365 days with the 9-10 equivalent versus using a 7 equivalent that we base our work week on. So 6 times Jesus was asked to give a sign to prove himself. 6 times Jesus was accused of being demon possessed. 6 years a servant had to work before they can set free. So we see 6 and how it's being used. 6 New Testament references to people practicing some form of sorcery, or they call it divination. Okay, so 6 is a number of man in its limited state. You have to be careful with 6 because it keep you mindful of your inabilities versus your ability. You can do all things with the Christ consciousness when you have that Christ in you operating. Then you have the emotional, the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual self working together. So we're going to come back to 7. I'm going to go all the way down to 8, 9, and then bounce back to 7 to end that this morning. So we know 8 is also seen as a number of new beginnings. So between your 7 and your 9, you have a new beginnings. And these are cycles. You live your life in 9-year cycles. Every 9 years, you start a new cycle. So what happens if you look back in your life 9 years ago when you was at a 9 or 1 cycle, or whatever 9 years back would represent, you probably will find you're having the same types of experiences. So in each year, you have a certain experience, and I'll go deeper into that for those of you who want to know what cycle of 9s are you on? Are you in a 1 year? Are you in a 3 year? Are you in a 4 year? Are you in a 9 year? Just the last year of this cycle. So when we talk about new beginnings, you have new beginnings on so many different levels. The number 8 represents new beginnings. 8 represents new life, regeneration, resurrection, commencement. 8 people were at the ark for the new beginning of the flood. When you go back to that story, 8 words of God to bring forth creation. If you look in Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, 6, 9, 11, 14, 20, 34, you see these were 8 words of God to bring forth creation, words of power. 8 souls passed through God's judgment after the flood, when you read that story. And so when we read these stories have deeper meanings. 8 days starts the week over again, okay? A new beginning at 8. The 8th note on a piano starts the scale over. So these are how we see 8 showing up. The 8-day consecration of Aaron and his son. So a priest was set aside for 8 days of consecration. Those are some of the things that when we look at 8 representing new beginnings, when David was the 8th son of Jesse, and so when we talk about 8 represents new beginnings, but a new beginning has to come after an old ending, has to come before you completions. A new beginnings give you the opportunity to see where you really are at. Now, because if you haven't matured, even if you get a new beginning, okay, you get your credit wiped out. But if you haven't learned anything, you got a new beginning financially, but then little or no time, you're going to be back to the same frequency. because you have a change, but you haven't changed the frequency. You're still running a frequency of poverty. That's why people take on new behaviors. They'll tithe, they'll give, but they still come up short. They have more month at the end of the month than they have money, because they're still running the frequency of poverty, a frequency of just enough and not enough. So we have to understand that you also have to have a frequency change with the new change. Now, so you can get married, but if you still have the frequency of a single person, it's not going to work. When we talk about 9, so we go 1 through 9, 9 being the number of finality, and it's also completion. So I often tell people 7 is endings, 8 is new beginnings, 9 is completion. And we're going to go deeper in that. But it's really 9 is the finality and faith. The 9th year of the prophet Hosea, the faith of the northern kingdom was judged by God as adulterous. So we had the 9 gifts of the Spirit, the 9 beatitudes, the 9 fruit of the Spirit. You know, he talks about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, which is really interesting. Those are the 9 right intentions. Now, when we look at the Nile Valley civilization, they had 9 cardinal principles. I had came across them when I was studying earlier this week. The 9 cardinal principles are right intentions, right thought, right speech, right effect, right action, right living, right reality, right understanding, and right wisdom. So those are 9 cardinal points to the Nile Valley spiritual system. And if we took on those things, if we took on those 9 things, and so there was 9 days in a week. So I imagine that 9 days a week, they practice one of those things. So when we talk about 9, it talks about finality, it talks about completion, but we are in the year of the 7. We're in the numerical value. Remember what I said? Numbers represent qualities. So the quality for this year that you're moving into is the quality of a 7. 7. That's important. I want to share something else with you also this morning, as it relates to this number system that we are in, numerical numbers in Scripture. So I wanted to share when we talk about 7. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. There's some of the things you need to know about 7 beyond the basic understanding. So 7 represents God's number of completion, perfection, and rest. It's done. 7 day of creation, sign, completion, and rest. 7 great land masses form the complete earth. 7 great bodies of water form a complete ocean. 7 colors make up a perfect spectrum. 7 colors in the rainbow. Interesting that the LGBT flag has 6 colors. Okay, that's interesting. They have 6, but there's 7 colors, and God's color scheme is completed in 7 colors. Okay. And it's interesting. That'd be something. Why did the LGBT community take such a universal thing? But yet it's incomplete. There's 7 colors, not 6 colors. 7 notes make a perfect scale. 7 covenants of God with man. That was the Adamic covenant. That was the Noah covenant, the covenant with Abraham, the covenant with Moses, Levites, David's covenant, and the Messianic covenant, which we who are operating under traditional Christianity, we're under that new covenant. 7 is a time of dispensation of God. And when you look at complete history, there are 7 dispensations. 7th year was the sabbatical year of rest. You know, after the 7th year, you let the land rest. 7 days for the feast of Passover. 7 times equal purification. Okay, 7 times of forgiving was elevated to 70 times 7 by Jesus. 7 Greek-speaking Christians were appointed by the 12 apostles. 7 titles for Jesus in Hebrew. So when you see the term 7 is 7 spiritual gifts. 7 is a number of completion, a number of perfection. It's also a number of rest. So this year, some things will be coming to an end because they're completed for you. This year, things will become perfectly clear for you. Maybe they've been imperfectly. You couldn't really understand, but the perfection of this thing. This year, the work that that you've put in, perhaps you'll see the perfection of that thing. This year, you'll come to the realization that I can rest. After done all that you can do, stand. Know that you've done all you can do. Sometimes we get into, we speak the words, we do the work, but we don't never rest. We never be still and know. We'll never allow that thing to happen. And so this year is a year of, when people hear endings, it also means completions. It means the letting go of some things. It means the changing from what has been, what you're accustomed to of what you are used to now to that's over. It's something new that's happening. So I have one of my books, the Numbers and Scriptures, found some interesting things here when we talk about seven. When we talk about seven, as far as gestation of things coming to life, a mouse is born in 3 times 7 days, 21 days. A rat is born in 4 times 7 days, okay, which is 28. The cat is born in 8 times 7 days, which is to take 63 days for a cat to be born. And so when we look at these, when you understand numbers in a very deeper way, we are normally looking at numbers on a surface matter. We're using numbers just for the numeric